Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the EastriverG3 podcast. I do this once in a while. I like to review a film I've seen, give you my thoughts on it. Sometimes they can go on for an hour or more, and sometimes they're relatively short, depending on just what I'm thinking. I don't like to plan these out too much. I found that I have more fun when I just kind of give you an off-the-cuff stream of consciousness kind of thing. I know some people don't like that so much, but that's the way I generally like to do things. So whatever, it's my podcast. Um, but I'm talking about Midsummer today, or Midsummer. I think that's actually how it's pronounced, which came out, I believe, in 2019, and that was directed by Ari Aster. Starring Florence Pugh, Jack Rayner, William Jackson Harper, Wilhelm Blumgren, Elora Torchia, blah blah, Will Poulter. I'm reading off Wikipedia just to give you the names. And this is kind of like a movie, a cult movie. It's really like The Wicker Man, if you've ever seen that film from the 70s. It's basically The Wicker Man, and it's basically a group of young adults that go from America to Sweden, and they meet a commune group of people, and they quickly find out they're a cult, and it gets pretty crazy, and you can pretty much figure out what's going to happen. So this movie is one that I've wanted to watch for a very long time. Actually, you know what? No, we'll continue. Sorry, again, stream of consciousness going all over the place. But yeah, this is one I wanted to watch for a very long time. It's been on my to watch list. And before I start reviewing it, I'll talk about some of the kind of funny, like weird way the film is like distributed. I know a lot of people watch their movies digitally, and that's fine. I watch content digitally every day, of course, on Netflix and stuff. But when I watch movies, I prefer to watch them on a Blu-ray because the quality is obviously much better. The audio is much better. It's an overall better experience. I've talked about this before. I mean, again, I'm not to sound elitist or anything. If you are fine with watching your movies totally digitally, then that's totally fine. It's certainly cheaper and takes up less space than having a bunch of Blu-rays. But if you're someone that gets bothered by little, artifacts and compression and things like that, Blu-rays are the way to go. Now, of course, I want to watch most movies on UHD or 4K Blu-ray these days because obviously that looks great, and a lot of these older film restorations look amazing on there. And I have a 4K OLED television, so of course I want to watch it like that. The standard cut of Midsommar, which is the one I really wanted to watch first, I always try to watch the theatrical cut first. It's not on 4K Blu-ray. It's not on UHD. It's on a regular Blu-ray, and it's only about $5, which is very strange to me. Actually, Midsommar and Hereditary are both like $5 consistently, and I'm not sure why they're so cheap because it's not like they're bargain bin titles or anything. But nonetheless, only the regular 1080p cut is on Blu-ray, and the director's cut you can get on UHD, but it's like a $45, $50 special edition. I'm not going to go buy that for a movie I haven't seen, And even if I did like this movie, that is just way too steep for me for a box set sort of release. I just don't buy individual releases that cost that much. Pretty weird that there's no 4K release of this. I don't know why. If it's a distribution thing, I don't know, but there is a 4K digital version on Amazon Prime. I thought that was weird. So there is a 4K file of this movie. They just didn't put it on Blu-ray. So I watched it on Amazon Prime, and it looked fine. It looked pretty damn good, I will say. But yeah, this is a very highly praised film. It was very well received, and from my knowledge, and I thought it was a pretty good movie, but I didn't quite love it, and I'll tell you why. But I did not hate it at all. I didn't think it sucked. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my time watching it, but I did have some issues. But I'll say basically I'll let you know what the positives were. The positives were that probably the main was that the acting was very good in this movie. I mean, there was a couple little things, but it was pretty incredible acting. Florence Pugh is the main character, Danny. I've never seen Florence Pugh in anything before. She was really good as Danny. There were some weird things that I didn't quite like, but they were more script things than an acting choice. Jack Reynor, who played Christian, was pretty good. I mean, I can go down the list, but I really thought the acting was really solid in this. For a horror thriller, normally the acting is a little bit weaker in those. This was just great all around. And one thing that is kind of interesting is that in this movie, like 99.9% of the American cast are not American. Florence Pugh is from like Essex, I think, or somewhere like that in England, or Oxford. And Jack Reynor is from Ireland. And then Will Poulter, he's also from the United Kingdom. I don't know which country he's from. England. But their accents were incredible. And I'm one of those people, like, I always hear bad... I think that a lot of times when an English person or United Kingdom person puts on an American accent, it just doesn't work. Like, you could just always hear their accent. And I'm sure the same is with English people trying to hear an American put on an English accent, but it always just, it's a little thing that bothers me. I had no clue that these people were from the United Kingdom. Their accents were really good, had no clue at all. So that's not like the biggest deal in the world. It would have been a minor annoyance to me if I could hear their original accents peeking through. But yeah, no clue whatsoever that where they were from. That was great. So I also thought that a lot of the cinematography in this movie was good. A lot of wide shots and then close-ups when it was very important. And overall camera work and just overall design was very good. The use of the darkness in the beginning was interesting, and how, of course, most of this movie takes place in daylight, which is a kind of turn it on its head kind of thing for a horror movie. And the village was very colorful, and it's clear that a lot of care and a lot of effort went into making this commune feel like a real place. I will say that's one of the better things of this movie was just impeccable care to designing this community. It really, everything was just like, yes, you could totally believe, maybe not how crazy they were, but the design and everything was so good. It was excellent. Very visually satisfying film, not just from the colors and the set design, but just all the little details and everything. And I did have some issues with the plot, but like all the little symbolism things, it's still nice to see all those things. A lot of attention to detail in that. So very good. And again, like I said, I wasn't thrilled with the plot, but I still think that Ari Aster, or Ari Aster, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I think that he is got something good going, you know. Now, he directed Hereditary as well, but I haven't seen that yet. I'm definitely going to check that out. I think that, you know, like I said before, like this is kind of like what I like to see. Horror movies are normally thrills and kills, slasher, you know, very simplistic, and that's fine. I mean, I like that stuff too. Some of my favorite horror movies are just run-of-the-mill slashers, and that's fine. But it is also nice to see horror at least kind of like taken very seriously, or it can be a very respected medium, you know, a very respected genre in film. So I do like to see this, because as much, again, as I like random, you know, run-of-the-mill slashers, I also like when horror movies have a lot going on in them. But here's where my problem with this movie lies. Okay, and you totally can disagree with me on this, and that's totally fine, you know, and I always like to hear people's thoughts. I'm sure a lot of people watching this probably really like this movie, loved it even. So please, of course, let me know what your thoughts were, you know, how they differ from mine. But this is a movie that is clearly trying to be an art film. You know, it's clearly trying to be this kind of big art film. And like, I know I just said that I like really appreciate that, but I don't think the actual plot itself has enough weight to go with that art film vibe that clearly is trying to happen here. You know, very, very stylized, immaculate attention to detail, lots of symbolism, like grandiose scale kind of thing. And the plot of this movie, honestly, to me, it was just a standard plot. It was just kids go to creepy commune and get picked off one by one. And I know that's simplifying it, of course. There's the whole thing with Danny, I guess I don't want to spoil it, but Danny has some severe traumatic event that happens in the beginning of the film, and she's dealing with that, and you're seeing her with PTSD sort of episodes and how she's going through that, and how you can kind of see she's going to this commune in a way to escape that or start over. Her relationship with Christian is terrible. They're basically stuck in a relationship where he doesn't really like her anymore. She likes him. That's pretty clear in the movie, but she knows that he just doesn't really like her anymore. Even his friends kind of point that out, like, what are you still doing with this woman? And he's kind of apathetic about it. Like, he you know that he doesn't really like her, but he just doesn't really do anything about it. He just is like, well, I don't know, whatever, let's just keep it going. And he kind of acts horrible. He's very careless and not caring of her feelings really, or even her trauma. Well, her trauma, certainly, he's not really that understanding of it, but even just basic human emotion, his lack of empathy is pretty clear there. So you got that going on, but does it go as deep as I thought it would? No, it really doesn't. I honestly thought that stuff, well, that's what a lot of people pointed out as being, oh, that's the thing that makes this a step above kind of thing. But I don't think it was, is that something that you don't see in a standard slasher? Not that this is really a slasher, but of course, no. But I don't think that for what this movie was trying to be, an art house sort of film, I don't think that it was done, it was that in-depth, really. I mean, it was just, it was kind of surface level. I was expecting to see more character development than I really did. And the plot, like I said, it is really simplistic at its core. There are these layers of complexity sprinkled on top, like seasoning, if you will. But they're just that. They're just really seasoning sprinkled on top of what I personally consider to be a pretty standard plot. I mean, like I said, I don't really want to spoil much, but it is just, they go to a creepy cult, things get progressively weirder, their friends start disappearing, and they're getting killed off. That's really what happens in this movie. And when I was watching this, and really when I finished it, I was like, yeah, I did enjoy it. And don't get me wrong, like, it was enjoyable. It was very well made. But yeah, I was just left like, it wasn't, that could have been done a lot better. Plot wise, again, I know I'm repeating myself, but I'm trying to drive in the point that, like, if this was, okay, I'm going on a little tangent, but I was reading on Wikipedia, and I know it's just Wikipedia, but, it says that Ari Aster wrote the screenplay, but from what I'm gathering is he was initially, I don't think he came up with this movie idea on his own. He was pitched this idea, basically, and they wanted it to be a standard run-of-the-mill slasher, but he was like, oh, based on my personal experience with, like, relationships, he put his own spin on it and added that stuff into it and kind of changed it. And so I'm kind of at a like catch-22 with how I feel about it, because on one hand I'm like, I almost feel like if they just embraced the standard horror movie trope kind of deal with this film, I probably would have liked it more because of what I said. But on the other hand, I'm like, yeah, but I also always want horror movies that go the extra mile, that are trying to be a serious piece of cinema. So I don't know, I feel like if it went either way and it fully embraced it either way, it would have been fine. I just kind of feel like it's one of those movies that was a little at odds with itself tonally sometimes. And, after I watched this, I was like, I liked it. I would like to see the director's cut, because I feel like it's got this is a long movie too, by the way. It's about 2.5 hours. So it was a little bit long in the tooth for what I thought it was, like kind of a run-of-the-mill movie in some ways. But for like a more of like an art house film, that's probably a standard running time. But the extra half an hour or so running time that the director's cut adds, I'm like, okay, that could certainly flesh out a lot more of the characters. But then when I looked at what was added, it kind of adds like one major scene, kind of chronicling isn't a good word, kind of focusing on their deterioration of their relationship. But it really is just like one kind of sequence where that happens. It's not like it added a lot of extra characterization for the other characters. The character of Josh, which was basically Christian's friend that he was doing his graduate study with, because I didn't even mention, but they're basically they're coming to this cult because they want to. Well, Josh wants to study this community for his PhD work, and then Christian kind of is like, "Oh, I'm going to do that too, and I don't really give a fuck if you don't like it." You know, he's an apathetic, unempathetic kind of asshole, basically. I haven't seen it, but it seems like those characters that I thought were really surface level don't get much more. So after I watched this, I'm like, okay, I do like director's cuts in general, because of course it's what the director intended before the studio made them cut stuff, or the studio themselves went in and cut stuff. But then I'm like, I don't know, man. Maybe this movie could work a little bit better as a miniseries. Maybe it needs that extra running time to really flesh things out, like a HBO miniseries or something like that, where it can be uncut and they can really take their time. They have a nice budget. But then, and I would like to see that. But at the same time, then I'm like, or they could just have done it better, They could have just made a 2.5 hour movie that covers all that stuff a little bit better. So I'm sounding very negative towards this film. I had some issues with this plot, as I said, but overall, I enjoyed it. Again, I wasn't like, well, that sucked. I was like, that was pretty good. There was a lot of, like I said, style, like a lot of style in this movie. The set dressing and the whole community. The music was great. It was very creepy and fitting. There were some things that I was at odds as well, that I don't exactly know what to think about. Like, as this, if you've seen a million horror movies, going in that this community is just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder as it goes on, to the end where it gets really fucking weird and uncomfortable. And a couple times I'm like, this is just fucking really weird. Like, I've seen some weird shit, and so I feel like my weirdometer is like, I can handle more of that than the average person. But even I, at a certain point, was like, some scenes I'm like, this went on a little bit too long, like, of them being fucking bizarre. And I'm almost like, could they have just cut that down just a tad? Or is that the point where you're supposed to feel extremely uncomfortable? Because I did start to get uncomfortable watching some of these scenes. It was just, so I don't know if that's quite a critique of, like, I feel like they should have cut some of that stuff down, or that was the point. It's just got really uncomfortable with how weird they were. I guess I don't know about that one, but I will say for sure, like, as this movie went on and it got weirder and weirder, I did get that feeling like, if I was here right now, I would be getting the fuck out of here. Which, if you've seen the movie, and if you've seen horror movies, obviously you can't just walk out of a place like that. But maybe that is to the film's benefit, and that is, that I always talk about that dread factor in films, where I want to feel like I'm there, and I want to feel really uncomfortable watching a movie like this. Like, I want to feel like the characters feel helpless, So maybe that was definitely to the benefit of the movie. Maybe I'm changing my mind on the spot. I'm trying to think of some other things, but that's basically my thoughts on the movie. There were a couple things that were like little plot nitpicky things, like that I guess like one weird one, and I'm gonna go into spoilers now. If you haven't seen this film, they're gonna be spoilers, so I don't want to ruin that for you folks that haven't seen that. So tune out now if you don't want to hear spoilers. Okay. The character of Pele, if that's how you pronounce his name, Pele, who was like their friend that they knew, that they, that basically got them to come to the village. You kind of, I mean, of course you know from the beginning that this dude is just trying to get them there to trap them there. But of course he's presented as like a really nice person, and these guys are all way too naive to understand what's going to happen to them, or they don't get that, like they have that dumb horror movie character vibe where like they just don't see it happening. Maybe it's because they're blinded by their ambition or their greed or whatever, but even as we get there, they just don't see it. And I had a couple questions to myself, like if this is a very extremely, like, the things that this cult does are so weird, their rituals and customs are so fucking out there and weird, that like I found it strange that they basically sent Pele out, or Pele, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it, to basically find these people who they were going to sacrifice. And I just found it strange, like do they send a guy out into the real world, but to find that, would a cult like this like let people go out and do that? How would he be able to assimilate himself so well into like modern culture to be able to do this? Because if he's gonna, and I missed it, but I didn't quite catch, or they didn't explain it, how they're all friends, how they know each other. If it was a real quick, like, oh, we met him at school or something, it's like, it just seems like they're so out there that it seemed a bit strange to me that this guy was able to just be a normal guy and then convince them to come here. And as the movie goes on, that becomes more and more apparent. Like if the people in this cult like would not, I don't feel like they realistically would be able to do that. I know it's a movie, but I'm just being nitpicky. And the other was that not too far into the movie, like when the first big what the fuck moment happens, where they basically, when people turn 72 in this cult, they jump off a fucking cliff and kill themselves. Now they see it as a great thing, of course. They see it as not prolonging their life unnecessarily or anything, but obviously they do it in a crazy way. They jump off of a cliff, and there's a weird ass ritual beforehand, and of course the old guy doesn't die, he breaks his legs, so they smash his fucking head in with a hammer, and it's like really gory. Now I appreciated those practical effects in this movie, amazing, extremely violent. If you don't like gore, there's not a lot of gore in this movie, but it is really very, very graphic. Just putting that out there. But I mean, you're spoilers, so you've probably seen the movie if you're listening at this point. But I mean, great special effects, just had to say that. But I don't know anyone in their right fucking mind that would not be like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. And I don't mean like, the British couple that was there, they pretty much were like, we're getting the fuck out of here. And the next day they left, quotes, left. But I don't mean that. I mean instantly. Like, what person would not? I don't know. I mean, I know that they're researching, they're like anthropologists or whatever. Maybe that's not the right term. But I know they're researching this, but I just don't know any sane individual that would see something like that happen, let alone the jumping off the cliff, but the smashing the head in with the hammer and shit like that. I would have been out of there. Now I know that they would have like grabbed me or whatever, but I would have fucking ran out of there. And they just kind of grimaced like, geez, that's terrible, man. Terrible. And I guess that's kind of the point. Like these dudes are just, they want to be here so badly. And I know Christian's is like that because his character is supposed to be totally unempathetic. But even Josh, who you kind of root for that guy. He's kind of the nice guy of the group. Even him, he was just kind of grimaced. He was like, oh, geez. I just, that was a point where I'm like, okay, obviously they need to just have them stay here to continue the movie, or else the movie would just be over, they're like, okay, we're leaving, and then the movie's over, or we're leaving and they kill them and the film's over. So I get that. It's almost like a MacGuffin in some ways, kind of plot device a little bit. But I just thought that was strange. Like yes, Josh is supposed to be an asshole and not a good boyfriend, but that's like cartoonish levels of like either evil or lack of empathy or just, I don't know. I found that very strange. I get it that they have to stay there for the movie to continue, but even afterwards, they all were just kind of like, oh man, you okay about that? Like, it just seemed unrealistic to me. That's all. Well, I've been actually pretty negative overall of this film, but I really did think it was fun. It was an entertaining, well-made film. I just had issues with the plot. I wish it really committed to going in either direction. That was my main criticism. I will. That's basically the end. I don't have much more to say. I do think that Ari Aster has some good shit going for him, and I would really, really look forward to seeing Hereditary. I think that might be a little bit more of my style, a little bit darker. But yeah, I really look forward to seeing that. I'll basically end this out. I kind of have like a new rating scale that I'm doing. I'm not a movie critic. I'm not a professional, so I just do this for fun, and I rate however the hell I want, And it's like on my Letterboxd, which is also EastriverG3 if you want to check that out. My ratings can be all over the place. Like a movie like Friday the 13th, Part 2. I love that movie because it's just plain fun for me. I might rate that higher than this movie, This is obviously a more masterfully made film than that. But it's just what's entertaining to me overall, I say that because, am I going to stick to this rating scale like 100%? Probably not. But I just did it for fun. So I'm doing letter grades because that just feels more right to me. So it starts with an S, not an A. I did S because I love video games. So, video game rankings always start with S. So S is perfection. Nothing could be better. Perfect film. An A, which is still a phenomenal movie, which is very few flaws preventing an otherwise masterful work from being higher. A B+, which is a very strong showing that needs some refinement in a couple areas, otherwise a very excellent movie that is very easily recommendable. Still phenomenal. A B, I wrote usually movies that have a number of flaws but make up for it with incredibly interesting and unique ideas. Still a great film. A B- is production heavy but a bit lifeless, still quite competent. So it's got issues going on, but there's still some good work going on there. C+, pedestrian or underdeveloped, which is a perfectly mediocre film. It has an equal number of bad things as it does good things. A C is hints of potential drowned out by mediocrity. Not terrible, just needs a lot more work. It's still enjoyable to a degree, but there's more bad than there's good in the film. A C- has at least one decent aspect going for it. It's not a really good film, but there was one or two little things where you were like, oh, that was cool. Then we get to a D, which is slightly better than a terrible film, but it's still a pretty bad, boring film. Not a great movie. And then finally an F, which is garbage with pretty much zero redeeming qualities, and that one really doesn't need any explanation. So I just thought I would say that for fun. That's my movie grading scale. Who knows if I'll stick to it? Probably not, but I thought it would be fun to do it anyways. That's basically all. I did like this movie, like I said. It wasn't perfect. I rated this like... I know a lot of people will be like, this was a 10 out of 10, a 5 out of 5, perfect film. It wasn't for me, like I said. And you might be surprised by my rating, but it is what it is, man. And it's kind of like sitting between a B and a B+. I would say, I want to say like a B+, because it was really, really, really well done. But it needed, like I said, needed refinement. But I really did think the plot was pretty basic, and it was like a little shallow in terms of how it showed the characters, and I personally didn't think they went very far with it, although many would disagree. So I tell you my rating system, I give you a B or a B+, and then I'm telling you it's sitting somewhere between that, but somewhere like that, like a 3.75 probably, which isn't bad at all. There's movies that are that are a C plus, a 2.5 that I still like. They're just mediocre, I don't hate them. So that's that. I obviously want to see Hereditary. I really want to see that. I really want to see the movie The Lighthouse. That's another one. Movies I want to see. Those are the only two movies I haven't seen. There's a lot of movies I want to see, but I'm just thinking of more recent ones. You know that I'm into Blu-ray collecting now, so there's definitely like a lot of stuff coming out, and there's a lot of stuff that I want to get. But I'm trying to think. Like the Indiana Jones one just came out. That had a couple issues, and you couldn't really get it, but now you can get it. I'll wait till it goes on sale. Criterion sale next month, or this month actually. And there's a couple Criterions I want to pick up. And a couple little other things there. I did that Blu-ray collection video where I'm going to keep you updated. That's still a thing. I'm not like a Blu-ray channel, so I don't have pickups every week for you, I get them here or there. And I obviously don't want to make a video of like one or two things, so I wait till I get like at least 5 Blu-rays or whatever to show you. So that'll be sometime next month or so, but whenever that happens. There was one more thing I wanted to tell you folks before I left, but I can't really remember. What's funny is on my recent podcast, I was talking about 5 underrated horror films, and I put Legend in there, the 1985 movie directed by Ridley Scott with Tom Cruise and Tim Curry. It's not really a horror movie. It's a really dark fantasy, but it's got horror elements. I talked about that. I love that movie, and I have the Ultimate Edition Blu-ray with both cuts on it, and I think Arrow Video, who they're a UK-based, kind of like boutique Blu-ray. They're coming out with a Legend release in August, I think, or September. And it's going to have 2 discs. Each cut will be on a different disc. And they're doing a new 4K digital transfer of the theatrical version, which that's great. That movie is so beautiful and has such great cinematography and setting and everything. But I don't think they're doing anything with the director's cut. And it seems like the special features, I love special features, it seems like they're just the same. I'm like, that is a fucking huge missed opportunity, man. I feel like most people like the theatrical cut more. I think it's way better. That's really disappointing. But there is a leak, a rumor, that Scream Factory is going to be doing 4Ks of Halloween 1, 2, 3, and 4, I think. And I think that they're going to be overseen by the original cinematographer, at least for the first one. That gets me really excited. Now, that's a tricky one because those are going to be $40 when they come out. That is a lot of money to pay for a Blu-ray. But those suckers go out, like they sell out really quickly. And I love Halloween 1 through 4. Even Season of the Witch. I love that movie. I really, really like Halloween 4. I don't know why. There's just some weird vibe about it that I like. So I have to get that one on 4K. Man, like that is the purchase for me. Those are some of my favorite movies of all time. I hope they're steelbooks again because they do great steelbooks, but even if it's just a standard Blu-ray, UHD, wow, that's going to be cool. So I got to get those, but man, that's going to be quite a chunk of change. Anyways, that's all. I like doing these. It's fun. Again, as always, please let me know what your thoughts on this movie are. It's okay if you disagree with me. I like when people disagree with me because I like hearing other people's opinions. It's nice to have a discussion about movies. And let me know what you've seen recently. If you've seen any cool movies lately. Doesn't have to be horror. Just let me know what you've seen. And, if you have any suggestions of stuff similar to this, please let me know. A couple of you have given me some great suggestions. All right, so that's all. I'll see you next time, and have a great day.